I think it's relentlessly executing. I see a crisis of procrastination.
Really?
Yeah, massively so. It's quite exciting, all the AI stuff coming out, etc. But there's such a paralysis, like what might not happen versus what might happen.
Yeah.
So they go, oh, okay, I can't possibly do that because what if this? And then you think about it in a negative sense, you go, yeah, but what if that? And that's really positive.
Good. Well, welcome to the Little Data Podcast, Nathan.
Thank you for having me. This is mega.
Yeah, it's a cool little setup, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, tell us, the audience, a bit about Quickfire, maybe a little backstory of like how you got started there.
Yeah, so I'm Nathan, co-founder of Quickfire. I've been going 9 years in June this year. So it started 3 co-founders. Fred, I think you guys know.
Yeah.
Martin, my other co-founder. More systems, process finance.
Yeah.
Myself, new business. I was just the gobby one of the 3, really. And the idea was, can you bring us all together to create a best-in-class e-commerce environment? We started doing everything for everybody and then decided actually Shopify was where we wanted to hang our hat. And that was about 2 or 3 years in, famously with Bremont Watches, helped them get to Shopify and then was like, right, this thing is really quite something. Did that, scaled, then COVID. I mean, thank goodness. We were going to back hospitality as our niche. No word about it. My parents have been in hotels and we were like, let's go down the hospitality route.
Yeah.
And then we chose e-commerce. Thank goodness we did. That went ballistic. And then it's been fantastic ever since.
Early 2020s, it was quite a lot of that was referred from Shopify, and then I guess gradually you've had to source.
Gone are those days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the partner program's super interesting, right? Because once upon a time you were one of a few, and I look back to the We Make websites of the world and the East Sides originally, and there was like Swankies. There's quite a few like fantastic early stage agencies, and then over time more and more agencies have come to the fold. They've evolved the partner program. We just recently got a platinum partner status, which was great. But yeah, anyone that comes into it thinking, oh, Shopify is going to send you a load of leads, you will be politely awoken by the fact that they do not and they cannot. And so it's all about finding those ops yourself. And for us, it's been about being top of mind whenever someone's looking for Shopify. Can they think of Quickfire? And that's the intention with the marketing we're doing, the go-to-market campaigns we put together, the hiring of Dan and Jordan, etc. We just want to constantly bring value to the merchant basically for the 95% of people that aren't prepared to buy. So if you look after them, then when they are prepared to buy, at least they're thinking of you. And that's why we've done dinners and events and stuff like that to try and nurture those over a period of time.
Yeah, you've got to be, as you say, top of mind when they at that critical moment where they are
exactly right.
Engage, yeah. So, okay, your mantra is if you don't ask, don't get. Comes out a lot. How's that shaped the way you built Quickfire when we advocate for your clients?
So I mean, to start with, it started really with the conversation with the 2 other founders, which was, I think we should niche on Shopify, which we have often had this thing that like, don't be afraid to ask or challenge in a boardroom, etc. And it was that concept of like, I think we need to hang our hat on something.
Yeah.
There was a big conversation about what that something might be, and then it came out to be Shopify. Then there was a partner. I'm trying to think of our first partner manager was. It was a lovely lady called Aggie at Shopify, but there was someone even before that. I think she was called Lauren actually, and she helped us. And it was like, how do you get onto the partner program? And I think that was the first thing. And so many people would have maybe, I don't know, filled in a form with Shopify, like gone through the help or whatever. So I'm just going to message this person on LinkedIn and ask, like, what's the worst that could happen? They'll be like, go away. And you'll be like, okay. So we asked her, she was really helpful. She then introduced us to someone else. Before you know it, you're then on the partner program. The goal was always to get Shopify Plus. At the time, that was the holy grail. Finally got Shopify Plus and was delighted about that. Yeah, just finding the right people and then asking them the questions, right? So they catch up with you normally once a month and you're like, look, this is what I want. I want to get to this point. They did like a shared business plan, which was quite interesting.
Yeah.
To see like, okay, where do you want to go as an agency? Oh, we want to really be known in mid-market. So brands doing 1 to 30 million is really our focus. So we talk about niching in terms of niching on Shopify, but now we want to niche within a niche, right? So we just want to be, okay, if you think of Shopify and your brand is 1 to 30 million, that's where we want to talk. If you've got a 200 million pound brand, amazing, congratulations. We're probably not the partner for you. If you're doing 500 grand, we're probably not the partner for you.
Yeah.
It's really just trying to own that space.
Okay, so when you look at those best performing Shopify brands you work with, what are they consistently doing that the stuck at the plateau brands aren't?
I think it's relentlessly executing. I see a crisis of procrastination.
Really?
Yeah, massively so. Like, I think it's quite exciting, all the AI stuff coming out, etc. But there's such a paralysis of just like I don't know, I don't want to do it just in case what might not happen versus what might happen.
Yeah.
So they go, oh, okay, I can't possibly do that because what if this? And then you think about it in a negative sense, you go, Yeah, but what if that? And that's really positive. So, yeah.
Is that just because the world's more uncertain, they don't know whether to invest, period?
I think a lot of people are worried of their career and their position and what people might think or say. And there's so much like negative bias of, oh, but if I do this, then is my job in jeopardy? Is the brand in jeopardy, etc.? So they're worried to execute. Whereas the brands that do seem to do particularly well with us are the brands that pull the trigger, try something, and have the humility to go, it didn't work.
I was reading yesterday about sort of jobs and the AI market. It was pointing out that actually, although a lot of the big tech giants have stopped hiring, software development is now everywhere. You go. I'm just making the joke that the guy is now applying for Starbucks not as a barista but as a software developer. Where previously would have applied to Google or something.
I mean, I have a personal opinion on this, which is I worry for the future of people getting into work. And not just in tech roles, but I did a talk at the college the other day and I said, like, what's your biggest concern? Thinking they're going to be like, oh, the situation in Iran or whatever. And they're just like, getting into work. Biggest concern. So I was like, why is it the biggest concern? They were like, well, how do we get our first job? And for you, if you had the opportunity to hire a 17, 18-year-old coming out of school or college or someone 30 with X amount of experience for very similar money, well, surely you're going to pick the one with more experience. There'd be no reason to pick that junior person. So then you go, okay, well, what hope have they got? And then you go, actually, to be honest, we'll probably look at AI. Can it do it? Oh, it can do everything an entry-level person would do, and it's only going to get better. So then you go, well, why would I hire the junior person?
I think the counter argument though is that the guy coming straight out of college is more likely to be sort of AI first than anyone else, and might therefore be quicker to adapt those tools and skills.
Yeah, well, I guess we had this with social media, right? And once upon a time, people did hire and they'd be new to social, whereas people are growing up with social. So yeah, absolutely, you might say the younger person is more AI enabled and better prompting, etc. But yeah, I think there's probably a couple of years lag where AI is new. If you're 16, 15 and you're coming through to get towards your first job, my stepdaughter's now 17, so she's just going into the world of work, and like, is she particularly AI savvy? No, like not even close. So I think there's a lot of people for sure in tech specific roles. If you're in computer programming at school, computer science, like absolutely you probably are learning about the Claudes of the world, etc. But if you're not, then the business goes, actually, we're probably not going to hire this person, we'll try and improve efficiency. And then you go, well, what happens to those people?
So actually, let's go on a bit more about the AI thing then. So there's a lot of noise around AI doing all the work for merchants, but obviously we both know it's not there yet. What has actually changed? What are some of the tasks that the brand could take on, and some of the tasks where realistically you need someone to actually critique and check the output?
Yeah, I think data enrichment is a big one. So there's a lot of people that once upon a time would have used a matrix file similar to download thousands and thousands of files and then enrich the data and had to do it so manually. Now I'm just hearing people going, oh, we'll just download it, we'll put it into ChatGPT or Claude or similar, and then we'll just get it to enrich it and then we'll get it back and review it, etc. And I go, actually, that's saving people tons of time. The thing is it's a little bit like a drug, right? You try it and then you're like, ooh, that's really helped, and then you're like, what else can it do? And then you're into this absolute rabbit hole, and then you try something and go one step too far, and then it doesn't quite work out. So I think that will be really interesting to be like, at the moment it absolutely has its limits. It's only going to get better. So I think there is quite an interesting conversation for agencies of like, how do you stay relevant? And that's something we've talked about a lot internally, is like, what does Quickfire look like in 3 years' time? Is the agency model that we know, I talk about agency 1 and agency 2, is agency 2.0 a people-heavy business like agency 1.0 is? Probably not. The question is, how long does it take to get there? And actually, if you think about it, you've got this emotional connection to all of these people in your team. There's now 40 of us. Like, I don't want to see those people go. I want to see those people continue to thrive.
Maybe you can just do 10x work with the 40 people,
Well, and I guess that's the big thing, is the brand's perception of what can be done in the time. And that's shifting quickly, right? Someone goes, oh, it's 120 quid an hour, but now you've got AI, I guess you can do 3 times the work. And you're like, well, it doesn't always work like that. For sure, sometimes. And I think I would love to see more developers and people being proactive with it and saying, look, I estimated 3 hours. I've used this to help me, and actually I've delivered it in 1 hour. How else can we help the brand? Amazing. But
I guess that one of the points there, which my own product team pushed back on me quite a lot, is that the writing the code was never the thing that took the time. It was the back and forth, actually understanding what the requirement was, checking whether it worked,
the scope creep, etc.
This stuff is somewhat accelerated, but basically, to your point about the whole point of an agency is you are bringing the ideas to the brand. I mean, you're saying, hey, we've worked for across 100 brands, and we know these things will typically help you, and these things are not for now. And I think that all of that conversation and stuff, can we speed up a little bit the research bit? I've seen some brilliant use cases of sort of AI accelerating user research and stuff, but the actual conversation with the client is still
that's still very important, right? And if anything, more important than ever. People are longing human interaction. I think absolutely. And it's the same across the agency. So not just in development. If you look at sales and marketing or you look at another component and you go, okay, there are certain parts, finding the ICP, enriching data, etc. AI can do a fantastic job at, which it couldn't do before. Amazing. However, getting in front of the client, having the first conversation, etc. That's all still very manual and will continue to be very manual for a lot of time. I can't see a world right now where I would buy something purely through AI over a certain amount of money.
Well, not a service like Quickfire's offering.
I don't think if you're spending £40,000 plus on a website, I'm spending £40,000 on anything. I'm speaking to a human being for as long as I can think. I can't imagine a world where I simply transact. Well,
also that I think, because there will be cheaper competitors that where you can't, people it will be a conscious choice. People willing to pay more to have a human interact with.
I do worry for the entry of the market. So you go, actually, people doing websites at 0 to 5 grand. Does that still exist in 6 months? And then you imagine it will just slowly eat up the food chain. And I talk a lot about food chains. I'm like, is mid-market 40 to 80k? Is that okay? I think it's okay for the foreseeable. 80 plus, I think that will continue to be absolutely fine. 0 to 5 to 10, I think will slowly be eaten away.
That's the process that's been going for decades, right? I mean, you talk about your 40 grand build now. I mean, and a few years ago without Shopify, that was a 400 grand build because of all the other infrastructure and stuff you had to spin up.
Absolutely right. And then you think, actually, the more and more people, does the project cost less? But then you go on retainer, and that's where you get your value, etc. It's the model will change. I think we're just fleshing out what the model looks like for the agency, and I think the brands are also testing, experimenting, learning, and that's why these we have a WhatsApp group that we run for brands and the events. That's why they're so important, because everyone's nervous and not sure what to try, and there's a lot of AI just slop and nonsense out there. So it's like, where do I go to get the right support? And then you go to a dinner or you go in a WhatsApp group and someone goes, oh, I just built this whole collection via X, and you just go, oh, that's interesting, I'm going to go and try that. I mean, how do you find it from an app world? Like, are you worried that people will just try and re-engineer little data through AI?
In the long term, I think we're probably on I like to hope we're on the sort of harder end of products to replicate. We're not really. I think I worry for sort of workflow tools if you're trying to be some sort of CRM system or something. I've built a couple of those internally the last couple of months, and it didn't take very much time. Still, there's two factors. One is hard to replicate right now, but the other factor is that a lot of people come to Little Data because we are experts at what we do. We're following all the latest updates in terms of the marketing APIs from Google and Meta and stuff, the Shopify's latest features, the art of the possible, basically. And I think that a lot of people miss that when they say, hey, we're going to try and hack something together in-house. Or in fact, we're going to use a sort of Google Tag Manager type solution. Because what you're effectively saying is you've got to have someone on the staff who's going to be going to the conferences, training up, following the news, experimenting with stuff, and constantly maintaining your tagging. I don't think most brands have bandwidth for that.
Well, no way. I talk a lot about full service agency versus specialist, and to a similar principle, you're like, is someone, let's say you're a full service agency of 15 people, like, okay, well, how many people have you got looking after Meta? 2. Okay, well, Andromeda update comes out, etc. Are you all over that? Well, no, of course you're not, because you're trying to balance so many other things. So, I think, back to your point, like, absolute depth of specialism, because if you want server-side tracking and you want the absolute cutting edge, you're going to come to Little Data.
That's the thing. That's what, every week we're making updates to that. And I just, we have a full-time team of 6 engineers doing that. I really don't think there's many companies in the world, frankly, who have that level of resource on such a niche problem. So, I think that's my main point of optimism. But I do think that it is, to your point about changing customer expectations, I do think one of the problems, and you see this in the valuations of a lot of software companies now, is the feeling that when it comes to renewal and people can say, oh, hang on, maybe I could hack something together, it will just, unfortunately, I think, depress the sort of pricing expectations. So I think it's not a killer, but I definitely don't see it as necessarily an accelerant of growth. On the other hand, there needs to be particularly positive about where space a lot of data's in, is that, all these AI marketing tools are evolving fast, but without the kind of data fuel, they are, going to go off course very quickly. And I think that's what people are realizing. And even something like Meta ads, where, increasingly the optimization is all automatic and there's no kind of like budget allocation or whatever manually. You're basically just saying to the algorithm, if this is converting for me, do more of it, or even create more creative similar. So I think if that's not getting the right signal, and it's going haywire, it goes, you're wasting money very quickly.
And I guess for you, and similar to us, all we need is a few brands to try the other route, the AI route, to absolutely set it on fire.
Yeah.
And then you'll be like, perfect case study to be like, do not do that.
Yeah.
And that'll be the same Shopify store, right? It's like, oh, we built our Shopify store on AI. How clever are we? Yeah, amazing. Problem A, problem B, problem C. Probably don't do that.
Massive customer data breach, whatever.
Absolutely.
It's and I think as I said, in our space, it's particularly the kind of, the two risks are your marketing looks dumb because you're targeting the wrong people. I mean, that's more a problem with like email through Klaviyo and stuff. But I think the bigger problem is just wasted ad spend. I think, as you say, if you have, and most brands, that is frankly their biggest cost outside of product cost, right? So if you're burning through that budget on campaigns that are just totally misguided, AI accelerated, but totally strategically misguided, I think brands are going to learn pretty quickly.
Yeah. This is not the route.
You kind of need to have, maybe it's not like you need to have, maybe the conclusion is you need an expert on the team to oversee it, or maybe the conclusion is we just need to have a better data feed into the AI to guide it.
I talk a lot about accountability with that as well. Like, at what point do you then not have an agency to go back to say, you didn't do this right, you didn't do this right, etc. And suddenly it's all on you as the head of ecom or the brand manager, etc. And you go, actually, they probably like having a little data there where if there is a problem, they can just pick up the phone 100%. And they haven't got to troubleshoot it. Sorry.
Because that is the thing, that the if you build it yourself, it's on you. There are no warranties to your point earlier. Like, there are no warranties to say something that's going to be fixed if it goes in the middle of the night. We have SLAs with our clients. If it goes down, it is on us.
As you giving up your weekend or whatever.
Yeah, we have a rota. Someone in the team gives up their weekend. Luckily, it doesn't happen very often, but obviously there's always issues. And I think exactly that's a lot what you're paying for, is that peace of mind. So I don't think that model is going away. And I also don't believe, as I said earlier, that many brands are anywhere close to having the in-house expertise to sort of build it themselves. Maybe some of the biggest brands in the world we work with, maybe, but even then,
you're gonna have
we've got other things to focus on.
Absolutely right.
As you well know, a lot of these brands are trying to do increasing amounts with a small team. So everyone is stretched thin. Everyone's trying to cover lots of bases. They don't have time to go deep in one area. Okay, let's talk about internationalization. So you've been very vocal about doing internationalization well on Shopify. What do you think the common mistakes brands are still making in terms of how they set up for international markets, and where does the pain show up?
There's a couple of pillars, I guess. Taxes and duties are ones that always seems to catch people out, particularly when you go into the US and the different states and the different taxation. And we'll always say to people, just take expert counsel. There's more about whether you're talking to a Globally or a Swap or potentially an Avalara. There's plenty of people to have that conversation with. So many people try to self-serve and then get caught out. So for goodness sake, ask the question. I was chatting to Airwallex the other day around localizing payments. And I think that's something is you don't have the nuance or the understanding of the nuance in the market. You just think, I'll just slap on a geolocator and I'll just say, oh, you can now shop in France. And there we are. There's euros. What more do you want? And you go, well, actually, there's so much more to it. The localizing of language, I had this conversation with a brand yesterday, is something they're like, oh, we have to start in 3 markets. No problem at all. If it's a US, you could probably get away with the UK experience with a bit of nuance, fine. However, as soon as you start going to a Spain, a Germany, a France, that localization of language is going to massively impact conversion rate, and just slapping an English experience on there, but oh, don't worry, we sell in euros, doesn't always cut it. It can be okay to start, but then you really need to go deeper and do it properly. So for me, we talked just before coming on air about expansion stores versus markets, and a lot of brands went down the expansion stores route because they wanted that total localized experience.
Well, I think at the time you couldn't do that.
Exactly right. There was you had to go there, and now many people are going, right now markets is available. Think of the maintenance of one store rather than multiple stores and the consistency of code bases, etc. We'll bring it all back into one store and use markets. But then a lot of brands are stuck at this crossroads where they go, well, we could do that, but we've also got a dev roadmap as long as our arm. And if it's not broken, don't fix it. It might not be heavily optimized, but it's okay. We'll stick with this and we'll spend the time and energy elsewhere. So that's where I'm seeing a lot of brands at the moment, is they're at this absolute crossroads where they go, do I go to markets and consolidate? Do we continue with expansion stores? The problem's only going to get bigger. We have to rip the plaster off at some point. What are we going to do?
Is it a fact of how many kind of countries they're in, or just really how sort of different they've made the stores?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think there's a bit of a mixture. I would say, if I'm just trying to think of a few brands off the top of my head that have gone down the expansion stores route, and like you say, they were kind of forced down that route because of what was available. Then Markets and Markets Pro, or the latest version of Markets, has come out, and it's so good compared to where it was. You go, actually, if I had my hindsight's a wonderful thing. If I had my time again, I would have done the Markets route. Is it going to be easy for us? Is it going to save more time? And it simply comes back to a business case of, it is going to take us, I don't know, X amount, about 100 hours to get back to a Markets environment. Okay, there is a cost that we're probably not going to get back. However, think of all the times we're having to update the code base going forwards over the next 6 months. We imagine that payback period. Exactly. So at some point you just go, we're going to have to bite the bullet and do it. It just comes back to what else is on the roadmap. And you go, actually, there's so much you want to do. AI is pushing from this angle, new tech coming from this angle. I saw the other day, there's over 12,000 apps in the Shopify ecosystem.
Yeah.
12,000. So you're like, there's so much to go at. There's ever rising acquisition costs. There's challenge over here. There's the whole situation with shipping, logistics, the Straits of Hormuz, all that good stuff. And you go, oh my goodness, like, at what point do I just bite that bullet? And it always, to me, is the can that gets pushed down the road, and we'll come to it.
I think that's good to hear, because I guess I couldn't, as a technologist, I couldn't understand why people wouldn't go for the more elegant solution, even if it was some switching costs. But as you rightly pointed out before, people are just worried to make a shift. There's always, unfortunately, with any of these things, there is an operational risk that
I think the saying is, like, urgent drives that important, and you go, actually, it is important to do for a brand, but what's more urgent is this thing's cropped up, or this tariff has changed, or this has happened, and you go, I mean, that's another thing, right? The whole tariffs scenario, the last 12 months for many brands, where you honestly, each day you woke up and you were like, I don't know what's going to come out today, and like, the last thing you want to be doing is then changing the infrastructure. You go, well, let's just maintain what we've got, and we'll just deal with the things. And what brands, I think, are looking or waiting for is a bit of stability, and what we've had since COVID, or arguably just before that, is stability in the market. So it's like, just as I'm about to undertake this big undergoing, I can't, because, oh my God, this has happened, or this has happened, or it was Ukraine and Russia, and then it was now this thing in Iran, and it's just ever evolving. And you go, I just need some stability so I can do some of the jobs I've been wanting to do. And it must be no different in tech. It's certainly no different in agency, where there's loads of things I would love to do, and I go, I will do that when I get round to it, but at the moment, I'm just busy doing all the other stuff that crops up.
Let's talk about metrics. So, commercially focused agency, you go into a new client. What are the top 3 things that you want to sort of measure to give you an idea?
I mean, I've been on a bit of a rampage of this, because I'm looking for metrics for different components. Right. So once upon a time, I was looking at just conversion rate, average order value, repeat purchase, revenue even. And now I'm like, okay, well, what's the next dimension down? So we're talking a bit more about profitability. Where I was like, okay, it's all well and good fixing this thing over here, but if it causes bigger cost over here, then actually, was it worth doing in the first place? I'm then looking particularly at customer service as a component of a business, and going, okay, well, CSAT scores, automation rates, there's more metrics to think about. And I was talking about the guys with Athos Commerce the other day around merchandising, like conversion rate, average order value, repeat purchase, fine in an overall broad e-com landscape. But as you go into each component, they each have their own metrics. And you go, actually, not really relevant. We're not talking about conversion rate here. What I'm looking for is how many tickets have been responded to within 24 hours. And there's a whole different dimension and thing to measure success. And I worry that too many people use a broad brush approach of just, well, is conversion rate improving? Like, well, if you start sweating of the small metrics across each department, do they then compound to deliver the top metrics rather than going top down? And that's something I've been talking a lot about on LinkedIn in particular, is how do we work out what those metrics are? So interestingly, for little data, like you might say, actually, Nathan, for us, we're looking at this data and this data and this metric, as opposed to, average order value. Yeah,
and it's an interesting point. So if you take conversion rate, for example, I think I get your point that one of the things you can do with little data is sort of split out, measure that by product, but also by product category. So you can look at the whole funnel and dice it out. And in fact, with our latest iteration, which is coming this month, you'll be able to pull in other sort of product metadata. So you might have other levels of, a lot of brands actually have more than one product category, different levels of splitting out their product collection. And often that's where you get the insight into where is my problem. Because you say overall number, 2%, 1.5%, whatever the industry standard is. Cool, you might be close enough to that. But what you might find when you actually dig in, and again, what I think AI is currently brilliant for is doing that kind of digging in, try something, see if you can dig another level deeper. If you've got the data to support it, and by that I mean be able to segment it by things like product category, you can then go in and go, oh, well, actually, it looks like this whole product category is just not converting, or people who add this to cart are never then going and finding this product category, which is an obvious sort of co-sell. So
that full funnel analysis is really important, right? Because you go, actually, where am I acquiring a customer? They're coming from Meta, and when they come from Meta, they go to this landing page, and when they go through that journey, they convert at X%.
Right.
Whereas if they come from Google, they're a slightly more higher intent customer, and therefore they go to that landing page and they behave differently. Conversion rate there is 7%, unbelievable. Conversion rate there is 0.2%, and actually we're merging the two to go, our conversion rate's blanket 3%. You go, actually, if you just broke it down by path to conversion, you go, actually, there's our leakage, this is what we need to fix. And either what you will often find is conversion rate isn't the problem, it's traffic. And you certainly see that with bot traffic in Shopify, and that's been an absolute nightmare. There is within Shopify's dash, within analytics, there's this thing about council bluffs, and it's like a state in America or a place in America, and it's just, whenever you see, I was talking to a brand just yesterday.
Oh, well, that's where the bot.
That's where almost always. So I said to a brand yesterday, "Do you sell internationally?" And they were like, "No." And I was like, "Well, your conversion rate's 0.7%, and we're having a conversation around your conversion rate should be higher." So I've just said, okay, of the 1,000 people you had last month visiting the store, how many converted? Oh, it's at 0.47. However, you're therefore saying it's a conversion problem. But if you look at the traffic, 600 of those came from Council Bluffs. Well, you don't sell outside the UK, so that's irrelevant traffic anyway. So now your conversion rate figure is out of 400 people, where suddenly your conversion rate's fantastic. Like, not bad at all. And then when you start looking at where the traffic is coming from, you go, well, that's nonsense. We had this with Nikki's brand as well. My partner, she has a clothing business. And a lot of her traffic was coming from Germany. And you just like, well, they were never going to buy anyway. So that was just pointless.
It's actually a really good point. It's actually a feature we launched last month, a little data, which is just a bot exclusion filter. So very simple.
Nice.
You just basically flick a switch and just cut all that stuff out. And I mean, we'll get a bit more sophisticated about it, because at the moment it's sort of binary, but using AWS and other tools, you can sort of have a probability of how likely this is. Because obviously the bots are getting more sophisticated. They try and,
of course,
look more like humans, right? Come from different places. But as you say, we've seen that a lot the last 6 months, where stores are just fundamentally getting spam traffic, which is totally obscuring their real numbers. Yeah, so I think, actually obvious next question is, the brand thinks that they have a CRO problem. So how do you diagnose whether it's really UX, offer, traffic quality, broken analytics? I mean, just slicing and dicing a bit.
Yeah, you need to look at how you're collecting the data. So is GA4 the single source of truth? And this is the big thing, which is where often we'll have conversations with little data or similar, right? Which is our place we're going to take as gospel. And so many people go, actually, we use GA4. Interestingly, over the last 12, 18 months, since the transition to GA4, so many people no longer use that as a source of truth. I've got so many people that will use a centralized dash and go, I don't trust it. Just like we can't use Meta, because Meta tells me to spend more with Meta. Google tells me to spend more with Google. And I'm like, as a brand owner, I do not care. I just want to know the truth. So then you go, okay, where is the truth? And then when you dive into that, you go, okay, back to that point, is conversion actually the problem? Is it traffic? Let's have a look. If you've got multiple agencies in the mix, I'm sure they'll all be pointing fingers and, it's their fault, it's their fault. And you're like, I don't care. I just want to know how to fix it. So then you're like, okay, well, is conversion rate the problem? What are we using to track user behavior? Are we using a Clarity, a Hotjar, whatever? Like, how are we seeing how users are behaving on site? And then you go, okay, beyond that, what else is it showing us in the Shopify Dash? And 9 times out of 10, remove that bot traffic and the story is very different. That doesn't mean conversion rate can't be improved, and it's an iterative process and it can always be improved. But also I do think sometimes those lofty ambitions of, like, let's say an industry standard is 2.5%. Someone's like, my mate down the pub said his conversion rate or her conversion rate was 9%. And you go, I promise you. So Fourth Glade, one of our clients, we've got the conversion rate to like 7-8%. And I always say to people, yes, hugely proud. However, that does not happen on every store. Do not for one moment.
It's again traffic mix. I mean, if a lot of your traffic was kind of word of mouth, kind of customer network, sure, it's going to be high. But if you're doing paid ads and so on, it's going to drop. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Think about the funnel, and you go, actually, a lot of our stuff is top of funnel, brand building, etc. naturally conversion rate's going to be impacted. People are finding out about, back to that dog food example, they're finding out maybe about the pros and cons of different dog food, or maybe how it helps joints or stomach issues for the dog or whatever. Like, it's more educational. They're not even in a buying frame of mind. So of course the traffic's not going to convert.
So you said, I mean, I agree with you that a lot of brands have sort of become a bit disillusioned with Google Analytics, but what are you saying, that they just then trust nothing, or do you think they do try and find?
Yeah, they're trying to find a sensible solution that could give them the source of truth. So again, I will share the solutions, but again, if you want to cut them out, fine. So you look at like Ollie at Sweet Analytics. Someone might go, okay, we'll go with something like that. We might use Triple Whale. Like, we'll just use something that feels like a bit less bias. And you go, actually, I just want someone to give me warts and all. Not Mark Zuckerberg telling me that I should spend more with Meta.
So I agree with the point about Meta. I'm always pushing back with the point about Google Analytics, because I think actually the way Google run the business is, I don't think they don't credit Google Ads more. So I do think it's actually unbiased in that.
Do you think Google's problem though is just how convoluted GA4 became? Because for Meta, I do think there's a problem with Meta over attributing, etc. Whereas Google, you might say, okay, they haven't got the attribution problem as such. What they have got is the problem that it can answer every question, but it's how do you ask the question, and it's become so complex. People go, I'm busy, I want a very simple dash that tells me the top metrics that I'm looking for on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, etc.
Google Analytics problem is very simple. It's about their business model. So they chose this business model for wrong, which was basically to make it free for like 99% of users, and then charge a big whack for enterprise companies that want to do GA360, right? And so basically that means the product evolution is all for that 1%. Like it would probably not even 1% in users, probably 0.01%. And so you go into it and it's basically a sort of enterprise grade analytics product. It's cool. It's much better if you are that kind of person. You love it more than before. But anyone in the mid-market e-commerce space hates it more than before, because they're not the paying customer.
Well, and also, if you think about it, like, what do they actually need and what do they care about? And essentially, they will have different metrics to them. Like, GA can give you so many metrics, and they probably have 2 or 3 top-line metrics that they get fed into Slack or similar on a daily basis that just says, are my numbers up, down, left, or right? And if they're up, I'm being left alone. And if they're down, then I'm having people ask me questions.
But all I would say is that a lot of other dashboard tools end up pulling the raw numbers from Google Analytics. So I always say that even if it's not your go-to, if you find the user interface complex, fine. I totally agree. I mean, I'm into it, but that's my analyst geekery. I do think though that if you are going to use any other dashboard tool, it's basically pulling that underlying data. Hardly any of them are actually doing their own sort of tracking. And so effectively it now gets bundled in with the rest of our data layer. Like we would say, even if you come to us for the ad solution or the clay-based solution, really do at least connect Google Analytics, because that's your sort of backup data source for
I think people should have it. The question is that even with more data, like, how many people actually use the data? So I'd be really curious, I don't know if it's a survey or a poll or whatever, like if you could just have the honest feedback from 1,000 brands, like, what data do you actually look at? You've got all access to this data. You're pulling in channels left, right, and center. How often do you actually look at a report, and how often do you present a report to a board? And then the dimension after that is how much you actually do something with the data once you've presented it back. I mean, we're guilty of ourselves, right? I'll go to a board meeting and say this, and then the next board meeting I'll say this, and I'm like, well, have you done anything about this? Well, not really, no, because I've been busy. So how many people are actually using the data to inform decision making and do something, versus we've got all access to all the data, but we've just got no time? And that's where maybe AI can come in.
I believe that's a really good
now we can go and interrogate this data and come up with an actionable solution that means it was worth downloading and accessing the data in the first place, because now I've got something meaningful to go and do with it.
So one of the tools I've personally been on in the last month is we're calling monitoring AI, and it does exactly this for our customers, because we have the same problem. You were talking about the equivalent of injecting a line of code into the site, where people will, go in and change something funky about their ad account or set up duplicate tracking Google Analytics. And we've always had this problem where it's like, it's not our fault, but equally, exactly because we're supposed to be the ones sort of overlooking their data, we get blamed or, throw the baby out of the bathwater. So what monitoring AI will do is just on a daily basis, it will run a whole batch of, I think we've now built out nearly 100 different sort of scans.
That's cool.
And it's cool because basically we can email the client straight away and say, hey, look, this has happened. Do you know it's happened? Do you want help to fix it? We do have a separate sort of premium support for service if they actually want us to dig in. But I think we're just trying to say that often this stuff falls between the cracks of like, maybe ecom manager, agency, marketing person, they all should have been responsible for this, but no one cross-checked.
Yeah, no one held overall accountability. And actually, that's an unbelievable tool for an agency as well, right? That goes, we want to be proactive for our clients. We want to be on the front foot.
Okay, finally, can you share a story of where, once they actually fixed the data and the tracking, the brand was able to make a really big sort of strategic shift or clear channel refocusing?
There's been quite a few examples of it. I'd say in its smallest case was a brand called Car Seats Plus, which are like a tiny little brand, but a lovely family-run business, and
presumably does what it says on the tin.
It literally sells car seats, right? Yeah. And actually, they didn't have any tracking in place, and then they went through this kind of program with the local council, and they started doing more and more good stuff and introducing new channels, but to me, the tracking is like a foundation of a house, right? Yeah. If you don't have that in place, there is no point building the ensuite bathroom when you haven't got the foundations of the building in place. And too many people, I feel like, have used tracking as a bit of an afterthought. Like, oh, we've built the house now. Oh, we're looking for pot plants. Like, in the nicest way, it's not a decorative luxury, it's a necessity. And I've spent a little while now with brands trying to say, actually, this bit is non-negotiable. It needs to be done. And as you've seen from the Slack channel and the introductions we've been making to Little Data, it's like, for us, it makes everyone's life easier to just know what's working, what's not, and know tracking's looked after. Yeah. Because it will come and bite you. Yeah. No doubt. And it's a bit like those people that try to get away with not having insurance, and then they ram their car into a wall, and then they go, I wish I had insurance, or something happens. You go, actually, just get these fundamentals in place. And if you're going to spend this kind of money on a store, I mean, we're fortunate. The car seats example I used wasn't actually a Quickfire client, just someone I was helping, and actually as soon as they do, then they're driving the right quality traffic, and then they can interrogate the traffic, but they can interrogate with confidence. And I think that's a big thing, is if you know your tracking's rock solid, you can start to interrogate everything with a bit more confidence. Yep. Whereas if you don't, or you think the tracking's unreliable, etc., you've always got this little thing in the back of your mind that goes, yeah, but it could be inconsistent tracking. Yep. If it's inconsistent tracking, then the interrogation is essentially pointless. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, let's just eliminate that. Let's make sure it's rock solid, and then we know any interpretation we are making can be then built upon.
I mean, that's kind of why I started a little later. I was working as a freelance consultant and the story would go typically less with a brand. Go like, right, well, let's look at how the website's performing currently. Or, don't know, had a look at that last week, not really sure it's set up right, to currently make head or tail the numbers. Yep. You're like, right, so you've known that this is broken, but you've never got around to fixing it. And we go through these long cycles of sort of tracking set up products, and then we realized we could productize it, and you could just basically install in 10 minutes something that you previously had to engage an analytics consultant like me to do. And suddenly you could flip from being not sure to like, oh yeah, that's all good. So now whenever, and as you say, but like insurance, I don't need today or next month, but whenever I do need to go in and step it up, I know I'm going to get the numbers. Unfortunately, what you can't do is go back and gather all that data.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's too little too late. And I think, I mean, at the price point as well, I'm sure you don't understand that for us, when we're looking at different solutions to just take this pain away, there are enough moving parts in the e-com ecosystem to not have to worry about this thing. And at the price point, if you said, oh, Nathan, it's £10,000 a month, and I start thinking, okay, well, maybe you can justify, like, again, you see this like pet insurance or whatever. Oh, I've got to insure the dog for 150 quid a month. Maybe I won't bother. If it's like £2, you just go, well, why would I not do that?
And we are typically under 1% of the brand's ad spend. So
it's crazy. Really it's tiny in comparison. You just go, this is like a non-negotiable. And actually, if you're not tracking it and you're just pouring traffic in, then just think like what you could save. There was a conversation earlier on LinkedIn around the use of e-com consultants and expertise, and it was James Gerd, actually. He's a super nice guy, and he was chatting about like, do you need them, etc. And I was like, well, can you afford not to have them? And this would be my conversation with tracking, is like, can I afford tracking? Can I afford not to have tracking? And that, I guess, is the take I'd give to anyone. Is like, when you're thinking about that for your brand, it's not like a luxury and, oh, we're thinking about subscription, we're thinking about loyalty, and we're thinking about tracking. I was like, no. Like, we're thinking about website, we're thinking about domain name, we're thinking about email, we're thinking about tracking. Like, absolute non-negotiable, fundamental on any store. And then we can start adding the bells and whistles. But let's stop thinking of tracking as a bell and whistle. It's an absolutely fundamental component.
Thank you. On that note,
it's all right.
Thanks
Do you take that plug?
That's the soundbite right there.
Well, thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope it's been useful.
Thank you.